And she also says, I was a monster yesterday, and I should apologize. But honestly, I do not give a shit.
Yeah.
I do not give a shit what they think. She doesn't mean it.
Yes.
And everyone knew it and could sense it. In the episode, I felt badly for her. And then we see the Between the Sheets, and I was like, oh, they all knew. She knew she was a monster, and she does not care.
Listener discretion advised. Adult language and mature content.
Podcast. I'm Keeley.
And I'm Jen. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. Thank you so much for coming back. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Thank you for returning. We took the week off last week to spend time with our family. We hope you did too. We had such a good time. Jen, how was Christmas?
Christmas was good. Christmas was chill. We just had New Year's yesterday for us. I have to say, just bringing it back to Florida again, Florida New Year's is insane. I live in the suburbs. I'm outside of Orlando. I am in family neighborhoods. The fireworks situation in Florida is insane. It's big. When I visited Orlando before, we'd go to Disney and you see the fireworks at Disney. They are doing just a step down from that in the neighborhoods. From the second the sun goes down until 4 o'clock in the morning. It is constant. It is so crazy here. And it's not like the fireworks that you put in the street and it's like a fountain.
Yeah.
These are like mortars that they are shooting up into the sky. They are so loud and so huge. They light up your whole house even though you have the curtains closed. The county that I live in will literally give you pet meds for free. So it's like the puppy Valium or whatever it is. If you can get a prescription for it, the county will provide you the medication because it's so insane, the incredible amount of fireworks that they have.
So is it legal or illegal to have fireworks?
Technically legal to have these fireworks. You're only allowed to shoot them off until midnight on the 4th of July and New Year.
Okay.
No one really abides by those laws. It's all of the time. It's going to be this bad for the next several weeks because now all these fireworks are going to go on 2-for-1 sale, right? Or 3-for-1 sale. And everyone's going to be shooting them off. So I go to bed early. I'm not fun and exciting anymore. I have kids and I'm tired. So we hung out with some friends and then came home and I went to bed. Matt watched Dick Tracy, which is apparently a New Year's Eve movie. He watches it every year and I've never seen it. Is that bad? I went to bed and then we woke up this morning and our power had gone off. And then Matt checks the Ring camera and I think the neighbors may have set their house on fire. On the Ring, we have video of people running around outside. We have, around the same time the power went out, there's like fire trucks outside. There's all of these people running around. I slept through all of it. Oh, it's good houses. Then we see, the power company truck is out front of our house and there's a guy walking around. And that, I think, is when our power came back on. I didn't know our power went out until we saw the flashing lights on all the clocks in the morning. So I sent Sam outside, my son. Can you go see if, like, the neighbor's house burned down? And he went out really quick, but he said that other people are staying outside, so he got nervous. And he was like, can't you just go outside? And I was like, no, it's very cold. It's too cold here to go outside. It is, I think it's 62 degrees. I'm not walking out in that freezing weather.
No, sure.
I'm not going to do it.
No. You would die in 62 degrees. You would freeze to death by hypothermia alone.
I am drinking hot tea. I am wearing a sweater. I am frozen to death. I think it's up to like 68 right now.
Sure.
But it doesn't feel like it. It feels like
it's
30.
25 and snowing here. So, I don't. Yeah.
Well, I couldn't make it in Boise anymore. My blood is thin.
I know. It's okay.
But I slept really well. So I slept through all of it.
Good job.
Yeah. And now that we're both so rested, we have enough energy to get through the mountain of TV show from 90 Day Last Resort and Between the Sheets, because we've got doubles of both.
Yes, this is what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to do both episodes. This is going to be a little bit longer episode this week. We're going to do episode 4 and episode 5 today on the podcast. So the last word and the last rodeo. We're going to attempt to talk about them together and not confuse the shit out of you while we do it.
I mean, there's a lot going on. They've literally broken it up into 2 shows, and I feel like watching it, you get whiplash.
Sure.
The second that you jump into Between the Sheets, which is their recap bonus footage episode. There's a lot, but it's just like all these delicious little nuggets of insanity from these people that I can't not watch. I have to see it. So we're going to just mix them all in together by couple, going chronologically with each couple. And then it'll make sense as we kind of go through. But
yeah, I think so. We hope so. If it doesn't, we're sorry.
Yeah. You guys should be watching the show. If you're learning about the show completely through us, then actually this might be more fun and it'll save time.
Absolutely. We don't know how to help you, but that's okay. But the last word, so episode 4 starts off, they picked up where outside the bar with Natalie and Jasmine fighting, right? Mm-hmm. So then Jasmine goes back inside the bar, right? And she's talking to everybody inside the bar. That's where they picked up. And Julia is outside. She goes outside and talks to Natalie. Mm-hmm. She talks to her in Russian because she thinks maybe if I talk to her in Russian, right, that might help. So they talk for a minute, and then she puts her in a van to go back to the resort by herself. And then Julia goes and talks to Josh.
I thought it was really great of her to go do that.
Talk to Josh?
Like
I did too.
I thought the fact that she went out and she was like trying to calm her down, and she was also very direct with her, which you have to be with Natalie.
Yeah.
And saying like, listen, you need to figure out what he's the one inviting people. Yeah. That's not Sophie. That's him going to Sophie. And you need to decide if this is worth it to you. You get wrapped up in the drama of it all. But Julia was very clear, and she's like, what's the point of this? What are you trying to achieve?
Yes.
And when she finally gets Natalie into the van to go home, you see Natalie break down even more, but I think it was in the first, like, genuine way where she's like, Julia, you're married at least. What's going to happen to me? That's where you see everything fall away. She's panicking / maybe a little delusional, and she's just lashing out in every direction other than where it belongs. But then you see her, like, it click and her go, yeah, I don't think that this is going to work out for me. And she's invested 3 years of her life. She's 39 years old. Most of the time she lives in a movie. Like, she lives in her own delusion of she's in a movie where she's the main character.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's actually healthy. And I wish I had a little bit of that. Like, the confidence of it is amazing. But you do see that, like, it all crumbles for her in that moment. And I did feel very bad for Natalie in that moment.
Yeah, because she does go in and out of that lucidity, right? Mm-hmm. Of realizing, oh man, I've been doing this for 3 years and this is what he's doing.
Yeah.
And then she'll get mad, right? And go in and out of, I'm mad at Sophie. What am I doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Julia then talks to Josh. And Josh is like, I guess I'll go. And she's like, no, aren't you leaving tomorrow? Give her some space. Like, you're just going to go fight more. She's not going to be able to have a lucid, logical conversation about this right now. Nothing good's going to happen to you going. And Julia then turns it around. She's like, all right, guys, we're back to the party, which I was nimble. That was, wow. All right. She's just right back into it. Good for her. I do love Julia, though.
I do love Julia, too. I appreciate her. So
should we just go through Julia and Brandon then?
Sure. We can start with them.
Just because they go have the rest of the night and it seemed like whatever. The last episode, he had taken her off of the bar and he was really upset and he had a panic attack. Mm-hmm. So that night, we find out the next morning, he slept on the couch because he couldn't stand to sleep next to her.
Yeah. And she is a godsend and the patience of an angel, and gets up and brings him coffee and sits down and says, why just sit here? And I wouldn't do that. You ask my husband is going to say, my wife is not going to do that. My wife will walk by me and throw a hot cup of coffee on me and say, yeah, you're on your own, dude. I'm not giving you shit today. But she is kind and loving and wonderful and sits down and says, what's the problem? And what does he do? He calls her a whore and says, what were you dressed? Why did you dress like that?
So embarrassing to me. I can't believe you would do that.
Yeah.
And we're going to skip into the between the sheets now. I wish that we had seen the sex therapist see him call her a whore.
Yeah.
I wish we had, because we do see the sex therapist basically give some insight, and I think she makes some fair points. First, on Brandon's side of saying he's desperate for this intimacy from her, and he doesn't get it, but then she will show it for everyone else, right? She's putting it out there, and this is like what he wants, and the only time that she's tapping into that part of herself is when it's for everyone, but she won't do that for him. I thought that was a fair point, but I was not even a little bit, I was so enraged when he is calling her a whore, and he's saying, well, you're willing to go dance for everyone, but not do this. Like, it's so embarrassing. She's like, you should be supporting me. And he's like, I can't support this. It was so disappointing because he wants her to be this very specific version of who he imagines a wife to be. And he wants her to completely wipe away and erase the parts of her that are why he was so attracted to her in the beginning in the first place. She was a go-go dancer. And he's like, and that really embarrassed, my parents were so upset about this. What are they going to think when they watch this? What, I'm going to get an earful about it. Are you serious, dude? It's gross, repressed, old school, traditional gender roles yuckiness that he just is so steeped in that it blinds him to the awesomeness that is Julia.
Yeah. I also, 2 points from me. I don't ever feel, whether you're married to that person or not, male or female or whatever your gender is, you never have the right to tell a person what to wear, ever. I don't ever feel, I would never tell my husband what to wear. My husband would never look at me and tell me what to wear. My second point is, what if the roles were reversed? What if your husband is a dancer, a performer, a stripper? Am I going to look at my husband because he's a performer and say, don't wear that shirt because I can see your muscles? Don't wear that shirt because it's too tight. Don't wear those pants because it's too tight. Don't wear those pants because I can see your dick. No. Does that sound ridiculous? Yes.
It's crazy.
It sounds stupid.
It's a double standard.
And it is a double standard.
I think a great mirror for it is Benny, right? What's interesting about Benny and Ari is Ari doesn't necessarily want him to not do those things. She just wants to be included.
Yes.
Where Brandon just doesn't want her doing those things.
Right.
Even though if you go back to their first season, dance is such a big part of who she is.
Yes.
And it's so important to her. And he's just like, well, when you dance like that, you're a whore. And you're
right.
acting single.
So
and
why does
no.
the woman get called a derogatory name when she's a dancer? But when a man dances, he doesn't get called a derogatory name.
Mm-mm.
This is what I want to know.
And for her, she's really separated. It's sexy dancing, and I was in my body, and I was feeling myself. But she doesn't consider it that her sexuality. Like, that is not intimacy to her. And he correlates those two. Those things are so firmly tied together. And while I think one could facilitate the other, if he had been supportive of her wanting to go and have a good time and dancing when they got home, he could have been laid. We've made this point before. She's trying to make the point that they're not the same thing. And they've been together for how many years now? And he still doesn't know how to separate those things.
Right. And I think if your partner is telling you how to dress, I don't think those two people should be together at all. 100%.
Not when there's judgment. If it's like, oh, I don't think that's not my favorite thing. I really like this on you. I think there are times and ways to say certain things. Or listen, I know that you're comfortable in that, but this is a nicer restaurant. Do you think you could put on a collared shirt or something like that? I think that there are times and places for requests, but when you're policing them out of judgment of like, people will think you're a whore, there's something really wrong there. If you're looking at your wife and thinking that looks slutty, then that's not healthy.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about the sex therapy with Brandon and Julia?
Yes. So sex therapy, they set up on those chairs were so cool. In these like double lounge chairs that were they looked comfy. I want one of those. And each couple is on their own chair. Next to the chairs, they have these tables set up with fruits and chocolate sauce and strawberry sauce and paintbrushes. It seems very fun. This sex therapist comes out and is explaining that what they are going to do is use this kind of like larger paintbrush to lightly explore one another. And when they find a place that feels pleasurable, they will mark it with chocolate sauce or strawberry sauce or something like that with a little paintbrush. I thought that was a really interesting idea. What was your response when you're like, oh, this is what they're doing?
Oh, I liked it. I thought it was good. I mean, I guess the bigger paintbrush was fine. I mean, I guess they could have done it with the little paintbrush the whole time. It just seemed kind of duplicative with the big one and then go back with the little one.
I think it's a fun idea. However, I think the issue that a couple people had was that it's there in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And it was also different levels of buy-in from the couples and even individuals in the couples. I don't think I could take it seriously if I was there with everyone. Okay. And I think that was part of the problem for Julia and Brandon, which is that I think if they had been able to do that alone in their room, maybe it would have gone a little bit better. But Brandon was like, no, just put sunscreen on me if you're there, actually. They made it into a joke together.
Yeah.
She put kiwis on his nipples.
Yeah.
And he was very stiff. And then they were kind of all more focused on other couples who were being a little bit over the top.
Yeah. I mean, he had some syrup on his leg and his inner thigh. I mean, they showed that, but they didn't really show them as much as a couple of the other couples interacting with each other and their body. They just kind of showed them giggling with each other.
Yeah. The takeaway is after they do that, then they have to lick it off of each other, which also didn't seem to do anything other than they made a joke out of it, which was fine. The therapist was like, humor is how you two break the ice, and it seems like you had fun together. So here's some fun toy kind of things and props. Have some fun. See if that breaks the ice. And then you see them back in their room at the resort, and they're goofing off, playing around, and I don't feel like there was any sexual chemistry there. It seemed like they were doing a comedy routine.
Yeah, so that was in episode 5, the last rodeo. That's what their homework was. After the sex therapy, she gave them that spanking, tickling, and blindfolding kit. I was confused about that for them when she said that laughing worked for them. I didn't understand. I didn't agree with it. I don't think that laughing turns Brandon on, and I don't think that laughing turns Julia on, which we find out in Between the Sheets that Julia wants someone to dominate her. She tells Rob she sees him on a run. I'm not quite sure what he was doing, stretching or something.
He was thinking about working out.
Yeah, he was thinking about working out. They talked about their homework, and she confides in him that she wants Brandon to spank her and pull her hair and hold her down, and which is fine. Take charge. Right, to take charge. Right, which is completely fine. Some women want a man to hold them down. Rob said you want him to take charge. He defined that for her. And Rob and Brandon are watching that clip in Between the Sheets. And what does Brandon do? Instead of go, oh my God, now I understand, and take that in a positive, he twists it, takes it in a negative, and say, why the fuck is she telling you? And he gets jealous and gets upset. This is the problem with him. He is way too immature to understand what his wife just did. His wife gave him a gift here's a gift. I'm giving it to you. And he can't just take the gift and go with it. Instead,
he can only see the slight.
Yep.
He can't see the message. He can only see that it wasn't hand delivered to him.
Yep.
He also says, well, sometimes I'll ask, like, is it okay if we do it? And she's like, no. And so then I know that it's not going to happen. She's asking for a specific kind of energy.
Yes.
And I guess she hasn't communicated that to him directly, which is unfortunate. He's like, yeah, but I've asked. I was like, can we please? And you're like, well, that's literally the opposite energy that she is asking for.
Right. She doesn't want someone who seems weak. I know that's kind of a harsh word, but he comes off as weak to her, and she doesn't find that attractive or sexual.
They've friend-zoned each other.
Yes, they do friend-zone each other.
And he's become such a whiny little boy about this.
Yep, and him asking for sex is weak to her. She doesn't find that sexy. I don't want you to come to me and ask for it. I want you to come up behind me and push me up against a wall and kiss me. That's what I want you to do. That's what she's asking him to do. That's what she wants. And he doesn't understand that, or he doesn't want to do that. And if he doesn't want that, they should not be together. That's not the kind of partner he wants. And that's okay. If he doesn't want that kind of a partner, that's fine.
No, he wants a sweet little Susie homemaker. He also wants someone that's always just going to say yes to him. But he's also not putting in the work.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Instead of going like, all right, I would really like to be intimate with my wife. What can I do? What's gonna do it for her? One, I think if he was helping with the dogs, I think if he was listening to her in any of the stuff that she's stressed out about and wanting from her parents and having a conversation about that, also taking a little bit more charge and having like a little bit more initiative in getting it started in a way that isn't, you haven't had sex with me in a really long time, I feel like we should. Like, maybe then you'd get laid.
How do you know that you might not like it? He might like the fact that if he came up behind her, pushed her up against the wall and kissed her, or did something that she suggested she liked, the fact that he's doing something that she likes, he may like it that she likes it, right? Sometimes that turns a man on when a woman is turned on, right? Not necessarily. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, not necessarily. Yeah.
He's so self-centered.
Right.
That's a really good point. He's so focused on himself and his wants and his needs and what is she providing to him. It's a little bit hard when he's like, me. I need it for me. And it's not focused on her. Which really makes me wonder if he's any good in bed.
Right. And that brings us to, then they do the yes, no, maybe. After tickling and painting and everything, they do the yes, no, maybe. So they have these signs. The therapist gives them pieces of paper and pen, and she says, everybody write on the paper, what would you like to happen during sex? Do you want to cuddle? Do you want to use a sex toy? Do you want something like that? So write down something. We're going to put it in the bucket. And then I'm going to read what everybody writes. It's going to be anonymous. And then you go stand by the sign, yes, no, or maybe. And then we're going to see everybody who stands by what sign. And you're going to find out maybe something about your partner, about other people. And the first one she pulls out is making a sex video. Both Brandon and Julia say no. They both stand on the no. They don't want to make a sex video. The second one they pull out is having a third person. So Julia stands in the maybe, Brandon stands in the no, and what happens?
Full temper tantrum.
Throws a complete tantrum. His face is red. His eyes are just black, staring at her. Complete tantrum. He says his feelings are hurt.
He was like, I can't believe, how dare you? This is awful. She can't do it with me, but she would do it with someone else. This doesn't make sense, which I get, but also she's not saying that she's looking for it. She's just saying she would be open to it. This isn't tomorrow. This is like down the line.
Right.
And then he starts to go, I would actually. I totally would if it was another girl, that's a typical male fantasy. You know what? And then he goes over and he stands in the yes. When they ask him about it, he's like, yeah, I did that out of spite because I didn't want to hurt her feelings. I never would have done that. It would hurt her feelings. And she's like, no, it wouldn't.
Right.
He's assuming all of these things for her, and he's literally ignoring what she's telling him when she stands there, and instead decides what she's feeling and what she thinks about it.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to stand in yes, and that's going to hurt her feelings out of spite because I know that she would be so offended. And she's like, I'm in the maybe. I would have a conversation about it.
Right. Right. You would know that he needs to understand 2 + 2 is going to equal 4 when he finds out his wife wants to be spanked, to have her hair pulled. She's probably going to want to talk about having a third person around. Like it is not hard.
She's at least open to it. Yeah.
Right. To come up with that. And she's not looking for someone to say, do you want to have sex tonight? Then we see in between the sheets for episode 4, they talk about there is more in the yes, no, maybe segment that they didn't show. Somebody wrote down pegging. I don't know if everybody knows what pegging is, but they explain pegging and everybody said no.
But apparently Julia will surprise him in the shower and say gay massage and shove her thumb up Raymond's butt.
I think she does that on purpose to embarrass him.
Yeah, that's not okay. If the roles were reversed, that would be horrific.
Yes.
Yeah, not okay, Julia. I shouldn't be laughing, but it's a little funny. Granted, I'm not saying anybody has to be into pegging.
No.
It's not something I've ever explored. There are certain people that are very into it. Your favorite lady on TikTok makes a lot of money off of it.
Yes. Her favorite client, she's named him Peggy Sue.
Yeah.
The next one they talked about was public sex. And this public sex could be people seeing you or people not seeing you. He said no, and Julia, she said yes. Come on.
Do you think she was the one that asked for public sex?
Maybe.
I kind of thought that might be her. She in the between the sheets, she told Jasmine that she tried to get Brandon going sitting in a McDonald's, and he was like, does McDonald's make you horny?
Oh, yeah.
And even Jasmine was like,
maybe. I could see that.
All right.
Right.
Maybe I'm a prude. I love hearing about it. I want to hear all the weirdness. But for myself, I feel like the idea of something in public, I would be so self-conscious. 1, what if someone saw me? 2, like, what would happen? I would be everywhere but in the moment. For other people, it's like, ooh, it's an adrenaline rush. My mind would be everywhere other than where it should want to be in that moment. Yeah. So hard pass, hard no for me as well.
Yeah, I think no for me too. You want to talk about Rob and Sophie next?
Yes.
Yeah, Rob and Sophie.
I actually felt sorry for Rob in this.
Yeah, the one thing I noted is when they first got to the group therapy and they sat in the lounger together, he had his hand on her knee the whole time. The 2 of them were the only couple that were like holding on to each other. And I thought that was very sweet. And he always seems to be touching her in some way. I really find that interesting. Because the other couples don't seem to be doing that. I pick up on stuff like that. He was trying, and he seems to try. Like I've said that from the beginning. He seems to be trying with her, and it's not like she's pushing him away, but she just is kind of dead almost with him.
She's very closed off. Yeah. She's not receiving it.
Yeah.
And she's not reciprocating it, which... Hate to see that Natalie was kind of right, but also she was the wrong messenger for that. I think that Rob does put a lot of himself into this relationship, and I see his frustration when he's trying over and over and over again, and he's not getting the same thing back. We got some interesting tidbits in this. They haven't had sex in 11 months.
Which is shocking to me. That is so surprising to me.
And also ask how comfortable you are having a conversation about sex.
Yeah.
And Sophie is not. She's very closed off. And then you have Rob, who I think is also a little bit closed off, but so wanting to connect in that way. She kind of throws out at him, maybe he's more comfortable because he used to be a male dancer, a stripper. He's not ashamed of that at all, but maybe he's more comfortable in his body because of those things. But she also is an Instagram model. She's putting herself out there all the time. I know that I've said those are different things, but there's this idea that she would be more comfortable in that she's a very body forward person, but she's actually not comfortable at all in the intimacy side of it. It's only in a very superficial way.
Yes, which I go back to what she was wearing at the bar. Even in between the sheets, when Rob and Florian were commenting negatively on what Julia was wearing, what was Sophie wearing at the bar, Rob? It's a double standard. What was your wife wearing? She was wearing string cheese. She basically had nothing on, and you are talking negatively about Julia. I mean, come on, stop. It doesn't make sense to me. Also, to me, something I think had to have happened. Something somewhere had to have happened for her to be that comfortable, to be an Instagram model, comfortable in her body, obviously comfortable for them to be in this relationship. Obviously they were having sex. They were doing fine. He cheated he did something wrong during their season. And now they're having problems. And now she's withholding somehow. I think something happened, and I think in some way
What happened 11 months ago?
Right.
This doesn't seem like this is the issue that happened 2 years ago.
Right.
This is something that happened 11 months ago.
Yes.
What is it that happened? And we're not getting that information.
Yeah, I think something happened, and we don't know what it is because it doesn't make sense.
No.
I don't know what's going on.
Going back again to at the beginning of the episode, they were at the bar together, and Rob really had her back and was not making drama. He didn't add to any of the Josh, Natalie nonsense.
Yeah.
He's like, listen, I saw it. It wasn't great. You were flirting, but he's not making a bigger deal out of it. He's just calling Josh out and he's trying to gaslight everyone. But then they're just making jokes and they're having a fun time making fun of Natalie's age.
Yeah.
Calling her like 97 years old.
Right.
They had a good time, and I feel like they had built this nice rapport together. And they go to this sex therapy, and she was the explorer, he was the explored, and she's so uncomfortable. She doesn't really want to touch him and kind of paints on him and makes it a joke. She's like, what about your nipples? And he's like, yeah, I really like that. Then she does it, and she's like, ew, men's nipples. He's like, I feel disgusting.
He's devastated.
Yeah, he's trying to convince her to buy in. And she's so overwhelmed by what's happening around them that she can't get into it. She's like, I don't want anyone to see me do that. And then she's trying to hide that she's getting the chocolate sauce off of his nipples. He had to talk her into it in the first place, and he's just distraught, and he's so irritated at her and frustrated. And I get where he's coming from. He's like, try. I'm trying. Please try. And she's not into it. But I think if they had done it alone in their bedroom, maybe, again, just like I think with Brandon and Julia, maybe it would have gone a little bit better.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then the episode 5, when the boys are all sitting around, when they split up, because the girls go out to a hat store and the boys are sitting around in the morning talking, Rob says, at what point do you just give up? At what point is it too much? And he's kind of right. At what point do you just stop trying? And I do feel bad for him. He just keeps getting rejected. He feels unwanted. That has got to feel so horrible to keep trying. He's doing all the right things. He's touching her. He's putting his hand on her leg. He's holding her. He's trying to have these conversations with her. They're making jokes together. They're not getting in these stupid fights about Josh and Natalie. All of these positive things are happening in their relationship. He's trying to connect with her physically and intimately, and she can't do it. That's why I think there's something else going on. But he's right. At what point do you just like, I'm done. I'm giving up. I don't know.
And the other interesting point that came up in between the sheets is they would go out together to the club. And they are living together. They go out together. And then she doesn't go home with him.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah, they're
and
married.
He doesn't know. And they're married. That's a whole issue itself. What is she doing?
Yeah.
It feels like she's been trying to check out, but then feels guilty about it and won't just fully disengage. In my opinion, if that's going on, somebody needs to call it.
No, I agree. I completely agree. I feel so bad for him. Because if he wasn't trying, I wouldn't feel bad. But he is. You watch it and he's physically trying. She's not pushing him away. She's not physically doing anything.
She's just breadcrumbing him.
Right. Yeah.
I was really anti-Rob at the beginning of this. I'm starting to see why he would be lashing out about stuff, while I still don't think that he has a right to freak out at her for having sex with Callum when she was 14. I see, it's just another thing on the pile for him. It wasn't that she did, it was that she lied about it. Yeah. And I'm starting to see, it's really shifted my perspective. Yeah. And I think she's just too young. I think she wasn't ready to be married to this guy. Yeah. And he's in his early 30s, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Oh. So the yes, no, maybes were very cute for them. They both stood at yes for making a video. Not surprising there. They both stood at maybe for a third person with Julia.
It surprised me that he was open to that.
Oh, really? Oh, I knew he
because during their season of 90 Day Fiance, she came out to him as bi. Yeah. And then he got very uncomfortable with the idea that she would be interested in women. Yeah. She might want to explore that at some point. Yes. I guess they've talked about it enough that he's comfortable with it now.
Yeah. That's why I think something happened with him. Maybe he's had therapies or he's matured a little bit. So they were both in the third person, maybe.
I would be a hard no.
For the third person?
Yeah.
I'd be a maybe. I think Steve would
be
I'd be a maybe. But I think Steve might be a no. I don't know. I didn't ask him.
I'm very jealous, and I need a lot of attention.
Steve's the same way. You guys are cheenies, so yeah. Yep.
I couldn't do it. I think I also make it a point to just be very high maintenance, so Matt just wouldn't have the time to have anyone else be there.
Time. I love that. In the between the sheets. So the public sex, Rob and Sophie said yes. And they both said no. And pegging, we already said everybody said no. And then they both said yes to being dominated because they talked about they did that to each other anyway.
She likes being.
She does. But that was their homework anyway. One person had to dominate the other person. Episode 5, the last rodeo, was their homework. But the therapist showed up for the first part, which I wasn't quite understanding why she showed up to try and get them started. I don't help Sophie.
Help Sophie be less uncomfortable.
Right.
It's like, well, clearly if there's someone else there, she's uncomfortable.
Right. So that was kind of funny to me. When they tied Rob up and he's like, are you good? You bad? He's just lying there.
So the therapist taught her how to do the blindfold on Rob. Yeah. Then she shoved socks in his mouth. He was like, are they clean? Yeah. It was so funny because in between the sheets, Julie is sitting next to Sophie and Julie is starting to have a visceral reaction. She's like, she feels like she's gonna puke. She's like, I just keep thinking about how, and Sophie's like, look, he's chewing on them. Poor Julie was gonna throw up. Not my thing. And she ties up his hands and ties up his feet, whacking his butt with a paddle. Yeah. And she's like, do you like that? And he's like, a little bit. And she's like, okay. It was so awkward and disconnected. Yeah. He was trying to give it buy-in. He had socks in his mouth. And she's not into it. She was not even trying.
Oh, God,
really.
no.
She was barely going through the motions and really fighting the whole thing. Between the sheets, they were like, after the cameras left though, did anything happen? And she goes, I gave him a cuddle.
And they showed her. She's just like...
She's the big spoon.
Yeah.
He just
and he's
like
all tied up. Yeah. It was...
Oh.
It was kind
like
of
a hostage. There was nothing sexual about it.
No.
Oh, poor Rob.
I know. Poor Rob. I totally thought something might have happened with them. But why would you tie his legs shut? He can't do anything.
Well, we know why she did, because she wasn't into it. She was like, let's just make this clear right now.
Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. Oh.
Poor Rob. But yeah, so I will say this episode made me feel... It changed my perspective on the two of them. And a big part of it is actually the Between the Sheets, where we found out that she'll go home not with him.
Yeah.
He is trying and he is putting in the effort, and he's like, I'm not getting anything back. And you watch him, even after the night before, where he was on her team, secure in himself and supportive of her.
Yes.
In that environment where we watched a lot of other couples just crumble. He was exactly the partner that you want in that scenario. She looked hot. He's like, you look amazing.
Yes.
She wanted to dance. And he's like, have a great time. I'll dance with you too. This other woman's a bitch to you. Let's make fun of her. I'm going to laugh at all your jokes when you make fun of her. And I'm going to have your back to the guy that's crossed the line without making a huge debacle of it. Like, he could have thrown a fit and punched Josh in the face, and he did not do that. He handled himself so great. The next day should have been like a home run for him. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't. And you go, oh, you're 100% right. I think there's something else going on that we need to find out about.
Yeah, which I think Rob the Knob in their season before, which he would have done everything you just said in that season. But
he would have been wrong every step of the way. And he is matured that he handled the whole night and all of its drama perfectly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I agree.
I'm interested to see what we learn next week about those two.
Yeah.
If we get any new stuff. Speaking of, should we do a quick version of Josh and Natalie?
Yeah, let's do it.
Josh, we found out the episode before that he was going out of town, and he drops that bomb on Natalie, which I think was the first step of the unraveling of Natalie at that bar, that he's got to leave. He's already cleared it with production, but he's not telling her until the night before he leaves that he's leaving. And then they have that screaming fight. The next morning, he had gotten another room, which, do you think that Natalie got a call from the front desk girl since he got his own room? She was supposed to contact her if he tried to stay there alone again.
Oh, I don't know. But can I say that floral ruffle spaghetti strap off the shoulder dress she was wearing was stunning. That dress was so pretty.
With her hair,
yes,
the natural wave in it.
The dress was so pretty.
She's got a very specific face. Sometimes she puts herself together and looks insane. Mm-hmm. And other times, especially when she goes the more natural route on things, I think she's so stunning. When she's in these like very flowy, very feminine dresses.
Beautiful.
And her hair, she looked great.
Yeah.
She was a little crazy, but she looked great. Well, he goes in and like, so last night, and she was like, explain to me what happened.
So what happened last night? And he was like,
happened? What? And he was like, oh, like so you're going to pretend you don't remember. And she's like, no. And I thought this was very emotionally intelligent. She says, I think we both have a different perspective and experience of what happened. And I thought that was very smart. She was very cool. But we also know that when she's very cool and that you don't know which way it's going to go. So he starts and he's like, you think that this happened. It's been blown out of proportion. And then she immediately is like, you're disgusting.
You're a whore. You're a low-key whore.
You're a whore. You've been sending her these messages and you're disgusting and I'm afraid to be in the same room with you because I'm going to catch whatever diseases you have.
Yeah.
She just she started off cool and then immediately flies off the handle.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. But he's gaslighting her
completely.
The whole time. He's like, nothing happened. Nothing was inappropriate. And he did the same thing the night before to Rob and Sophie's face when he was like, guys, this is getting blown out of proportion. And Rob's like, I saw the messages. They were pretty sus. And He's like, well, I didn't do anything wrong, and if I did do anything wrong, I'm sorry. What kind of bullshit is that? Yeah. And he does the same thing to Natalie, only he's not scared. He's just fully gaslighting her.
Scared.
Because he was scared of Rob. Because Rob could kill him. Although they both work out. The other thing is that he's always in these like open shirts. And at one point in between the sheets, he and Gino are seeing if they can flex their chests. And they're showing each other flexing their chests. And Ari made a fantastic observation. She's like, I feel like when he was young, he thought, when I grow up, I'm going to be cool. And this is what he thought was cool, which is these really cliche tattoos and this weird haircut, working out. And he's made several comments about how good he looks when he's watching himself on Between the Sheets. He's like, oh my God, look at my muscles. And that's what he sees. And Natalie brings up an interesting point later on in Between the Sheets that he begged her to come on this show.
Yep.
They were on again, off again. He keeps kind of dragging her along. And he cried to get her to come on this show with him.
Yeah, so he's a fame whore.
100%.
Yep.
And you know what solidified it? Was that TikTok that you sent me.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to bring up, is this TikTok that Josh and Rob and Jamal make. They lip sync to different songs, and none of them have a shirt on. None of them. They all have tight pants on.
At least buttoned. They don't have a button on. Not a button is done. Rob is doing this thing where he's like Michael Jackson. He keeps whipping it behind him.
Right.
And they're like air fucking a chair.
Yes. How is that any different from anything that's been going on in this show? I mean, the hypocrisy, the double standard is astounding.
If any of the women did that, they would all be losing their... But the fact, I thought Josh was like a business guy. He's talked about very boring business stuff that he's into. Then you see him doing this dance. There's at least some production behind it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You and I are struggling to get like our lights for this podcast, and there's got to be a professional involved in
100%.
That, right? These guys doing these dances in their rooms. It's not like a teenager alone in their room dancing and lip syncing to a song.
No.
They have professionals recording this for them. I'm going to be honest, I did think it was them actually singing.
No, it's a Keith Sweat song from, I think, the 90s.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
I know. It's okay. No.
It's very like New Kids on the Block.
Yes, they do that too.
To like Justin Bieber.
Right. But it's okay for them to do that. And nobody says boo.
It's great for them to do that.
Sure.
There's going to be some women that look at that and go, oh my God, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But not Sophie.
Yeah, no.
I bet Natalie would be into it.
I'm sure Natalie would be into it.
Natalie's going to watch that and get all about it. But he wanted to be on the show. And then he does this and he sets her up. He's gaslighting her. He sets her up to look insane. He's like, guys, look at how crazy she is. I couldn't manage her. It got out of my control. This is like the top 10 freakouts she's had. This is what happens with her. And she says, she freaks out at him. He goes, well, I think you need to apologize to everybody. I'm going to go. And he leaves to go catch his flight. Natalie and he do not participate in the sex therapy because he's not in town. And Natalie calls in James, my favorite therapist.
Yes.
Because I fucked up.
Yeah, this is what happened.
This is what happened. And she explains to James, the first thing being that she had this big fight, that he's done this to her. She also explains, I've been building friendships with these women. I think I fucked it all up last night by having an emotional breakdown. She doesn't give him the play-by-play. And if we remember from last episode, he had not seen her freak out, and it blew his mind. So his understanding clearly was not linked with the reality of what she did. She's explaining that the reason she had this big reaction is because in her childhood, she was bullied by kids at her school, and they put gum in her hair, and she had to cut all of her hair off, and they always blamed her for things, and she'd have big reactions. Josh does things that he knows will provoke me. I think she's right. I think he knows how to set her off, and for some reason, he's into it. He likes having that control.
Yeah, I agree that he does trigger her on purpose. He gaslights her afterwards, which I think is completely cruel.
It's so cool.
And makes her feel crazy. She ends up being and acting crazy because of what he's done and said. And I think that's terrible to do to a person on purpose. Yeah.
I think if it's consciously or unconsciously, he has picked her.
Yeah.
Because he can do these awful things, use her to get on TV.
Yes.
Have wild sex, have access to these other women, cheat on her.
Yes.
Not give her access to his life. And then blame it all on her.
Yes.
And when she has a big reaction, she looks insane. And he's like, crazy,
See
right?
what I mean?
I know, I deal with it all the time.
What I mean.
And then he looks like the victim, but he's the one that's...
Yep.
He's picked her because he knows that behavior will cover up whatever he's doing.
Exactly. And that's a monster behavior. I think that's terrible. I don't necessarily believe all the bullying stuff. All of the other stuff with him is awful.
It doesn't seem
her.
like anybody believed the bullying stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Sophie was watching it, as Julia was watching it, as Jasmine was watching it. They're like, well, we were also bullied and we don't behave like this.
Yeah.
You can be bullied and not behave like that. Also, maybe the way that you're behaving, where you're calling Sophie a whore and a prostitute and saying that she's doing these things that you have no proof that she's doing, maybe that would be triggering for other people. But Natalie and her own narcissism is only seeing that her trauma is valid. So it's hard to be on her side too.
Yeah.
And I think the worst part is, in the next episode, all the girls get together. It's Sophie, Julia, and Jasmine. They go to this very cute... I would love to go, by the way.
I would love to go there too.
So cute. It's a hat shop. It's like cowboy hats, and you get to pick out your cowboy hat and then decorate it. It's like a little crafty thing. And they're all looking at the charms and the different things, the feathers and things that you can put on the hat. Then Stacey sends them a text and says that I'm coming with Natalie. And they're just gearing up for the bullshit that's about to happen. And Natalie gets there and apologizes in exactly the way that James, the therapist, told her to apologize.
Yes.
Say, I'm sorry. That was completely uncalled for. I shouldn't have done it. I'm probably triggered because of my past, and maybe be vulnerable with your trauma. And so she is. Sophie's like, I respect that you apologize, but I'm going to need some time. And they're all calling bullshit. But they're not saying it directly to her face, but no one is taking any of what she just said seriously. That kind of stinks, because she did exactly what she was told to do, and it seemed like she was trying to be sincere. And then what do we learn in Between the Sheets? That as she's driving in the van with Stacey, she's like, well, I think I do need an apology from Sophie that she needs to not flirt with my man. And you're like, oh, you don't mean it. She's still talking shit. She also says, I was a monster yesterday and I should apologize. But honestly, I do not give a shit.
Yeah.
I do not give a shit what they think. She doesn't mean it.
Yes.
And everyone knew it and could sense it. In the episode, I felt badly for her. And then we see the Between the Sheets, and I was like, oh, they all knew. She knew she was a monster, and she does not care.
Yeah, I think she genuinely does want friends, does want women friends. I think she does. I mean, it would be a lonely life not to want to have friends, not to want women friends. But I also think Natalie knows who she is as a person. And when Natalie says something and she believes that something, she's probably not going to genuinely apologize for it and will probably lose friends for it. She's one of those people. She's going to tell you something directly, not probably apologize for it. And if you can't be in a friend circle with that kind of a person, you're not going to be in that kind of a friend circle with that person. That's kind of a person that Natalie is. And I think she knows that about herself. I think she wants to have friends as well. And that's going to be hard for her to do.
I mean, both things are true. She wants that, but also she knows that that's not really attainable for her in the long run.
Yes. Yeah. And this group of women, I don't know how she's going to get that. Maybe with Jasmine, right? Jasmine might be the type.
No, I think she's burned her bridge, but she does have Stacey.
Yeah.
Because Stacey's such a peacemaker. Stacey's like, let's get this going. You even hear in her voice, she's like, well, this didn't all work out, like, after the apology the way that I had hoped, because Sophie's not going to pretend. And Sophie's like, I'm not going to be fake. I respect that you apologize, but I'm going to need some time. Like, she's not accepting it yet.
Yeah.
And Stacey's like, ooh, I really hope this is gonna smooth everything out. And she's like, so we're all good? We're all good now? We're gonna at least be nice? Okay, let's move forward. Stacey Julia started as my number one, and she still is. Stacey is the dark horse for me. I have just fallen in love with her.
Yeah, Stacey's getting up there.
And Stacey's so sweet that she can even try and support Natalie.
Yeah.
In a genuine way.
Yeah.
There's some goodness there.
I know.
I was not.
Yeah. Even in between the sheets when we're watching these horrible things, she is the one sitting with Natalie and patting her shoulder and, trying to help her and make her feel better and it's going to be okay and helping her.
And she will say, that was bad. That wasn't okay. That was bad.
Right.
But then she moves forward she's still being sweet and supportive.
Thank you, Stacey.
Stacey's MVP this episode.
Yeah.
And Florian. Both of them they just did great.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. Can we go to them?
Yes. Let's do that.
I don't have too much for Stacey and Florian, to be honest.
I don't either. So Florian was the one that was painting Stacey, of course, but we half the episode for episode 4, the last word was Florian trying to pull off Stacey's boots, which was very funny.
I think it's actually what comes off as very him being dismissive and rude to her. I think is dry humor.
Yeah.
The more that I watch him, because she comes as a cowgirl to sex therapy in this big hat. Gina loves her hat.
Yes.
And she's got these boots that go halfway up her thigh, these like suede boots. And he's like, this fucking boots. Yeah. He's like trying to pull them off. What the hell are you doing? And it's just funny. They're funny
cute
together. And she's laughing. And then he starts exploring her body. And he bought in. He was focused on her. She was delighted by the whole experience. Mm-hmm. They did exactly what the therapist wanted from them.
Yeah.
They weren't distracted by the other things going on. He was tuned into her. And it was just very sweet. Just watching them connect on this other level, especially after the hike. She had come in, do you want me to do a striptease for you?
Oh my God, yeah.
He's like, I am too tired.
Yes.
And I was like, oh no. No, he genuinely was too tired. And when he's given the opportunity and they have the setup for it, they do great.
Yeah.
Although they were talking about one of the things the sex therapist asks about is like, how comfortable are you all talking about sex in general and with each other? And we learn like she is maybe more comfortable than he is to talk about it, but together they're not at all. They don't have conversations about sex. And you do kind of notice in her little like banter with him about any of that, like she'll try and put it out there, but it feels like very forced and you can tell like she's putting the effort in, but she feels awkward and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Borderline Gina when she's like, ooh, sexy baby.
Yeah.
It's not flowing, but she's trying.
Yeah.
What are the things that they said that they would do and wouldn't do?
So Stacey said yes to making a video. He said no. And his comment was only in the United States would people think that that's okay. They both said no to a third person. He was like, absolutely not. That's incredibly insane. They both said no to public sex. They were very adamant about that. Obviously, they both said no to pegging. And I didn't have it for dominating. In episode 5, their homework was role playing while having sex. And that couldn't have been cuter for the two of them. That was perfect for them.
I know. And she's just throwing out ideas.
Oh my God.
She's like secretary and boss.
Right.
That could work. Teacher and student.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I looked at it and when she's throwing these out, there are all of these power dynamic things. But then what they actually end up doing, I think was based primarily on wardrobe options, is that they did cowboys.
Yes. 2 cowgirl, cowboy. Yes.
She had this lingerie, black lingerie, and the hat and all of this. She gets right into character. Then he's in his black outfit and black cowboy hat. And they were just very into it. Just immediately bought in. He does try and show off to Rob? I'll show you what I do.
He was demonstrating. Oh my God. In between the sheets, he got up from the couch and walked behind.
He does his cowboy walk up. And then he goes, howly, darling. He's like, no, you mean howdy.
Yes. What are you doing? Oh my God.
I just loved it. And I think they were the only couple that had sex that night.
They were the only one.
They haven't in a while. It was great. Afterwards, Stacey's like, yeah, that unlocked a new level for us. That opened up a door. How great.
It was very cute. Yeah, and he wasn't worried about the camera, right, that they had in their hotel rooms. Because I think they did it again, maybe. Because they started kissing, and then he pulled up the covers again. And then it cut out.
It was just seemed so sweet, and I was so happy for them. One of the things, the boys all get together while the girls are doing the hat thing. The boys spend all day just getting wasted together.
Hammered. The boys are completely hammered.
Having a boys' day, playing beer pong in the pool, just broing it up, slapping each other on the back, congratulating each other on having penises, I think. But Rob asks, who do you think has a chance?
Yeah.
Like, who's gonna make it? They all are like, I don't know. And Florian says, I don't think any of them have a chance. I think that Florian and Stacey, who at the beginning of this, I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
Turned around, I feel like they both are buying into this therapy. They're both putting in the work, and they both have a genuine affection and enjoyment of each other. Yeah. And they've opened the door to start figuring out their intimacy stuff. I'm really rooting for them, and I was not in the beginning.
Yeah,
I really turned a corner.
I hopefully they show one of the first episodes when the therapist said that Florian doesn't want a dramatic partner or a partner that has drama. I hope that they show maybe one of the therapists saying that to him, with Stacey hearing that, because I think that would help them. That's so true for him. And that's what Stacey is completely dramatic. But I think they're going to do great. I think they're going to make it in the end because they're doing so well right now.
She has a gregarious personality, but we're also seeing her, especially with Natalie. I think Natalie holds up a mirror for her.
Yeah.
I think in her family dynamic with her and Darcy.
That's true.
There's such big drama, and you kind of watch it and you're like, that's insane. But when you're living in it, it just kind of becomes this like cycle and echo chamber.
Yeah.
When she's taken out of that environment and she's watching it happen with these other couples, that's not okay behavior. I think it's clicked for her very quickly of her going, oh, and we're seeing her be very soft. We're seeing her be very vulnerable, and we're seeing her being very open, but calmly with Florian. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Until all the men are wasted at the resort. The girls come back from their cowboy hats and they're all in great moods. Gino and Jasmine kick off, but the second that there's friction, Stacey jumps in and just hits 100. Yeah. I'm wondering how that's going to go. We'll have to get into that a little bit more with Gino and Jasmine, who are always the number one weirdos.
Do you want to talk about Ari and Benny really quick? I didn't have a whole lot for them. Oh, I know.
So it's so textbook for them in that he is closed off from her for any intimacy. Yeah. And she is going to make it happen. She's decided they're doing it, so they're doing it. She's boundary stomping, and he is putting up every wall. Yeah. It's so uncomfortable. Yes. So they're doing the brushing, and she's like, I love doing it because I got to make him uncomfortable for once. But it's not the point of the exercise. You get to say red light, green light, and if you say green light, that means they mark it with an X, and red light means don't touch me there. And it seems like everywhere that she goes, he's saying red light. So when he says red light, she's like, then let's go under your shorts. He's like, red light, red light. I didn't love it because he's not participating. Even worse, he's saying no. And she's like, you're lying. You love this. Everything hasn't changed in 4 months. I know that you love this. It's this weird power dynamic thing. I think she's utilizing the therapy as a weapon. I didn't like it.
It was super painful to watch. Very painful. She kept saying, this is a green light. He's like, no, it's not. This is a green light. No, it's not. Which is the opposite of what it was supposed to be. She's supposed to be quiet while she's painting him. He's supposed to be, yes, that's it. No, that's not. But she's like, this is a green light. This is a green light. This is a green light. He's like, no, 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 no. And it was so horrible, so hard to watch. He finally said yes to something on his leg, yes to something on his arm. And then he just wipes off everything that she painted.
He got wet wipe.
Yep.
So she didn't even, she was trying to use her mouth, and she's like, I can do it. And he's like, no, 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 I'll clean it up.
Yep. When he wiped everything off, I thought, oh God. It was so bad to watch.
He also went in going, where's my passwords to my social media?
Yep.
Like, it's still a thing.
Yep.
She's, I think, afraid that the second she gives him that, he's going to check out. And he's like, I'm not buying in until I get that. And it's this power struggle between them that just sucks. I don't remember what either of them said for the yes, no, maybes.
So she said maybe to making a video, which was shocking.
Oh.
He said no. He said no to a third person. She said no. They both said no to public sex for between the sheets. Both said no to pegging. Like we said, everybody said no. And they both said no to dominating, which I'm not surprised about also.
No, and she even made a point that she's like, maybe when I was younger, but now I need like my bodily autonomy. Like I need the ability to have like control in that moment.
Yeah.
Which I get.
Yeah. And I just remembered when Josh said, they asked him on Between the Sheets about being dominated by Natalie. Remember when he said that? He's like, maybe, but I'm afraid to be dominated by her. She'd either leave me or go to my house, right? She'd leave me tied up. Move all her stuff in. Right?
She'd move all of her stuff into my house while I'm tied up.
That was so funny. That was hilarious.
And true.
And true.
And true.
And then their therapy, so Ari and Benny for episode 5, their homework after therapy was to go on a date, which I thought was okay. They went on a UTV date and a picnic, which I thought was okay.
Yeah, except that her comment on the Between the Sheets was, I'm glad they picked, because it sounds like production planned the date. She's like, I'm glad they planned the UTV thing because I knew it would be loud and then we couldn't talk, so then we wouldn't be fighting. And it seems like in their wheelhouse, they used to be adventurous people. They like going out on hikes. They like going and trying new things. They're both pretty physical people. Yeah. Then they go and they have what seemed like a nice picnic. They had a bottle of champagne and he shook it up and she's like, why are you doing that? You're not supposed to shake it up. He's like, it's what they do in the club. And she's like, okay.
Oh God, yeah. It was just, they were kind of a dud also.
Yeah. She really enjoyed it. In the end, it seemed like they both enjoyed it. And she's like, if it could just be like this every day. Yeah, but you're on vacation right now. Yeah. That's not every day. That's not literally everything else that they're dealing with is in real life. So yeah, when the basic requirements of real life come into play, they crumble. Even though they had a nice day together, I was like, none of this is going to work.
Yeah.
They didn't really connect in a real way.
No, I know. I feel so horrible for her because when real life hits her, whenever that is, if that's even hits her finally in the face, it's going to be so hard for her thinking back on all of this stuff that she did to try and save her marriage. It's going to be so hard to swallow, right? I did all of these things thinking that I could try and save this relationship, right? Thinking that maybe I could make it work. Maybe he still had feelings for me. Maybe I had feelings for him. And none of that is true. And I did all this work for nothing. That is so hard to swallow.
I think maybe she might also, ideally, she'll be able to look back on it and go, look, I really tried everything. I really did make an effort.
But that, what you just said, comes later, comes in a year, comes in 5 years. What you just described doesn't come first. What I described comes first. After you go to the bathroom and vomit, after you cry, after you call your best friend or your sister or your mom, and you sit and sob and you don't eat and you have the diarrhea, and it is terrible. It is terrible. Yeah. And you sit there and think, how stupid do I look? How stupid do people think I am? And you're throwing up and you have a visceral reaction and it's awful. And it's the worst thing to go through. And then what you just said, and then in 5 years, what you just said happens. What you just said doesn't happen first. It's terrible. But it does eventually happen.
I feel like there's part of her that's so emotionally intelligent. I hope that she can like check into that, or at least to a place where she can accept things for what they are. Yeah. Not necessarily feel good about them, but like accept things just for her kid. How do you move forward with that in a healthy way for your kid? Because she clearly just like lives for her son. Yeah. I feel badly for her. It's hard because it's a young family that just, you want to root for them. The other side of it is, when I was in high school and my parents got divorced, I remember me and my siblings being like, finally, thank God, being a relief when my parents were like, we're separating. I think her kid is way too young to be in that phase yet, but there is something subconscious where they know that it is in a safe, loving, connected environment, even if there isn't like screaming.
Agree.
Poor kid. I don't know what their future holds. Just, they stopped having sex a year ago.
Oh God, yeah.
I hope they can both accept that it's done sooner rather than later. She's not there yet, and I think she will push for it to get figured out and fixed. He will run all the way to Las Vegas and start a new life for himself. Oh. And she was still like, no, we're working on this marriage. So I'm hoping she can accept it. Yeah. Because I feel like he can tell her to her face, and until she figures it out, it's not over for her.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, so we have Gino and Jasmine left, and I have lots of thoughts.
So much. So Gino and Jasmine have a history of being insane. Gino and Jasmine have a history of weird sex stuff. I had a conversation with my dad. Dad is not watching the show.
Oh, he's not?
So he's learning about the show. Oh. No. So he only watches us to give him the recap.
Did he watch season 1?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's just listening to us talk about it. And I think it's, he's got a busy schedule. Yeah. He can't watch all the shows. He was like, so you think Gino's gay? I am not saying that I think Gino is gay.
Oh, okay.
I think that he's probably bi. And I think that he is forcing an idea of what sexuality should be on himself. I think Gino is more sexually fluid than he is comfortable admitting to himself. And I think that he is into some weird stuff, which we already know. And I think half the reason he's into weird stuff is because he's not comfortable admitting basic things about himself, like he might want a thumb in his butt or to put a wiener in his mouth. I'm just saying that those are things he should...
I don't agree. I have other thoughts. I don't agree, but I have other thoughts. No? I'm shocked. Okay.
Oh, I feel like I've made that pretty clear. Okay. I think he likes men. I think he also likes women, but I think he likes men more than women. And then I think that has led to this weird confusion with like the women that he is connected with and how he connects with Jasmine and how he forces these relationships, and he puts on kind of the show that clearly feels so false to me. When he's like, my favorite thing to say is when he, in a previous season with Jasmine, they had gone on a vacation to Miami, and she was telling him about her fake butt, and he was like, ooh, sexy baby, and he slapped her on the butt. And you're like, well, no one's comfortable with this. But I feel like his sexuality is very performative. And then when you see other things that he does, where I feel like he has a lot of crushes on men. I think he loves Florian. Remember when Florian twirled him?
Oh, yeah.
I've seen Gino so happy. That's what I think. Okay, so what is your theory on Gino?
My theory on Gino is, remember when they were having sex. He was into having sex with her, right? She was obviously very into having sex with him. He went to Panama a lot. They would have sex. Remember, he sent the picture of, I think, her boobs maybe to his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend or something, and she got very angry about that. They were having sex. We didn't hear about any sort of porn addiction. Maybe he wasn't doing it. I don't know. And then now, Jasmine keeps bringing up this porn problem. He keeps saying it's not a problem. And then in episode 5, when he's sitting around talking with the boys, he asks the boys about the porn, right? Do you guys watch porn? They all say, well, yeah, once in a while, if you're not getting it, that's fine, which I am not quite sure about the other men's response. It was almost non-responsive to me. Some of them were responsive, some of them weren't. I didn't quite believe all of them.
Rob and Brandon both did say, yeah, if you're not getting laid, you've got to deal with it somehow. And so, yeah, occasionally.
But there occasionally, to me, I inferred was maybe not 2, 3, 4 times a week or a day.
Correct.
Like Gino, right? He admitted...
Well, Gino said he did twice a week.
Right. I think that's quite a bit. I think that's quite a bit for me, okay? My opinion, I think that's quite a bit.
Okay.
I think if you're needing to watch sex, to watch it that much, I think you should have that need with your partner. You should be having sex with your partner. You should be wanting your partner that much. Your partner should be on your mind is what I'm trying to say, not pornography. Okay, that's my first problem. So my problem with him is this pornography. Okay, this is what I'm trying to say. Something had to have happened with him and Jasmine. I don't know what. She clearly is a very sexual person. We have known that from day one. With her. She's very sexual. He knows she is very sexual. They have had a very different sex life. I think when they were in Panama, they talked about they were in a hot tub, or there was something maybe with a golden shower, maybe either.
Yeah, they were into, he likes to get peed
Yes, they were into some weird stuff. So we knew that about their sex life. So now something has happened where he is withholding sex from her. Okay. The therapist in this show has now said there's a red flag to her. He is withholding sex and he's using it as a power play to get what he wants from her. He's using sex as a weapon. He's using it as a punishment to her. What I think about Gino, I don't think that he likes men. I think he just likes women. I think he has some sort of kink with sex. We clearly know he likes different types of sex, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think they have a different type of sex life. I think he has a porn addiction, and even the sex therapist said he has, what was it? The emotional impotence, right? Where she explained that he can't get an arousal for his partner, right? He only gets an arousal for pornography. But I also believe something has happened between the two of them. Some sort of fight, some sort of incident. She cheated, he cheated. I think something happened between the two of them. Something big has happened. What I believe, this is the longest thing I've gone around in a circle. I believe Gino is a monster. I believe, I'm not kidding. I think he's using sex to punish her. I think he is hiding behind it to make himself as a victim. I think what he's doing, like you said with Natalie, he's gaslighting Jasmine into making her think that she's crazy, making her have these outbursts, screaming, getting upset, the whole hot tub thing. People inherently feel bad for Gino. They inherently feel bad for him. They go, oh God, look, I feel so bad for you. Look how she treats you. The between the sheets, Rob comments and says, God, dude, I don't know if her tears are real. I don't know if her motives are real. That shit is what Gino wants people to believe.
This. Yeah.
Because he's manipulative, because he hides behind using sex as a weapon. He withholds it from her to make her crazy, to make her have these outbursts, to make people think that he's a victim, to make her look crazy because he's a monster. That's what I think is happening. And he's got a porn addiction.
Well, okay, there's a couple levels of that. He does, in between the sheets, he told Florian. See, I think that there's part of him that is showing off to the guys.
Yeah.
And he even references when they go into sex therapy later on, I'm the oldest guy there. At first, he's not really feeling as into it. They have to get a little prompting from the therapist, but then he goes all in. And he looks like he's eating her out.
Yep.
Because he's painted the inside of her thighs. And she's into it. Like, Jasmine does not care. She's delighted. And she's making a lot of noise.
Yep.
This is what I kept referencing earlier. It was distracting to other couples. Half of the reason Sophie had such a hard time was because right next to them, Gino and Jasmine are putting on a whole show for everyone. Yes. And she's like, oh, God. And Julia can't take it seriously. She's like, he's the same age as my dad. It was such a deep turn off to see what they were doing.
Yes.
The other layer of it is we find out in between the sheets, Gino told Florian that he will take a Viagra and admire himself to masturbate.
Yes.
What? That's like, he will do that, but not, and Florian says it, Rob says it, Brandon says it, just fuck your wife. Everything would be fixed if you just fucked your wife. And I feel like for Jasmine, in her life experience, sexuality has given her, is what her source of power is. And all of the shitty fighting that she and Gino constantly have, he finally disarmed it by being withholding.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
I think you're right. I think he sets her off and then makes her look crazy, just like Josh and Natalie.
Right.
He has this genuine power. She goes to him, literally is crying, I love you. I want this to work. I want you. And he's brushes it off. So they do the sex therapy and they go over the top. Then the next thing they do, the yes, no, maybes. The bombshell of the yes, no, maybes, the therapist is reading the different options. She reads out this one, adding a third party to the relationship. Gino and Jasmine both go to yes. And everyone's like, oh, all right. And Gina goes, I think every guy's fantasy is, two women. That sounds amazing. I wouldn't be against it. Then Jasmine goes, I think we have a different interpretation of this. And of course, the reason they have a different interpretation of this is because that was Jasmine's question. And this is how she throws in, he refuses to give me an intimacy. He will not satisfy me. He will not engage with me that way. I would like to have the opportunity to get those needs met elsewhere by another person. I still love you. I still want to make a life with you. But if we can't do this, I want to do that. And he's just blindsided by it. He's like, we're married. How could you? She's like, well, if I can't get it here, I'll get it somewhere else. Which is not how, in most people's marriage works. Everyone else is like, oh my God. Holy cow, I can't believe she said that. But I honestly don't think that that's that crazy at this point. If they've decided that they're staying together, but this isn't getting fixed, she's just looking for solutions. I think it's shitty, but she says, I was just trying to brainstorm things and I found it on an online forum. I think that the therapist's idea was basically this is going to blow up a marriage. It's not a healthy choice to make. If you're going to open up a marriage, it's because you're both very good at communication. You're both very good at boundaries. You both can talk through all of this and make whatever rules that you set for each other because there's a lot of trust. And of course, Gino and Jasmine have none of those things.
But he's such a psychopath. She finally makes these decisions, right? I'm going to make a decision. I found a decision to have an open marriage. I'm putting my foot down. This is what I want. He says it's a deal breaker. Everybody feels sorry for him, right? Which is what he wants.
Yeah.
Then we see in between the sheets another decision she makes. She's packing her stuff. And we're like, what the hell is going on? And she's like, I'm leaving. And he says, you're not even going to try. He fucking gaslights her. You're not even going to try?
Right.
That's your response? You're not even going to try? And then he calls the therapist in. He's playing the victim again, and he does it in front of the therapist. Whenever she puts her foot down, whenever she makes a decision, he gaslights her, he plays a victim, and he does it in front of someone else and makes her look crazy. He's a psychopath. He's a total monster. I am disgusted by him. I can't with him. I don't know what happened between the two of them. Something significant happened because he was not like this before. He was not this cruel to her before. She has constantly always said, I love you. I want to be with you. All I want to do is have sex. All I want to do is be with you. She's always been upfront. you can be kinky and do whatever you want in the bedroom. No one cares. And now he's turned and is completely cruel. And I don't understand.
It seems like she was never saying no to him. Like, she was open to some weird stuff. She'll call him out and try and embarrass him with it because they both are immature and they suck. But she's like, you can I'll pee on you. There's a lot going on with him in his sexual repression / not being sexually repressed. I can't figure that out for him. But I do think that there is something going on with the fact that he is so willing to talk about the things that he's into and wants to have those conversations with everybody but her. Yeah. I think you're right. I think he does play the victim. He's gross in so many ways. Yep. It does seem like his using sex as a weapon against her is something there's sinisterness behind it.
Oh, yeah. He's punishing her, and he punishes her in front of people. It's disgusting, and it is so horrible to watch. I feel so bad for her because he loves it. He just sits there and agrees with everybody. Yep, I don't know her motives. Yep, I don't know if those tears are real. Are you kidding me?
He trying to show off for these guys? What is happening? And then, so they've spent all day. Yeah. Florian has made it a point to just get
everybody wasted.
I mean, he wants everyone to have a good time, but specifically Florian's like, he's so sad. I want him to be happy. And he just gets him wasted. So all the guys are drunk. The girls come and meet them, and they're all like, look at our hats. They're having a great time. Gino gives a hug to Natalie, and he falls off his stool a little bit and ends up just like shoving his face into her chest.
Inappropriately long.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, though, it kind of just looked like he fell off his stool. And he needed her to help him get back up. Natalie, pot calling the kettle black, she's like, I don't know what it was clearly friendly. And you're like, okay, if Josh had done that, you would have punched them in the nose. Jasmine immediately is like, no, this is not okay. Instead of blaming Gino, goes after Florian.
Yeah.
She's like, you're a bad influence on him. Why are you doing this? Which is weird because I thought she would have been into like everyone having a good time. That's usually her vibe. And instead she saw Gino and she was just like, no, this can't happen. She got jealous of the Natalie hug. She apologized to Natalie. She's like, that was an inappropriate hug. I'm sure you were uncomfortable. And it turns into this weird kerfuffle where she like dumps out Gino's drink. And then she thinks she's dumping out another one of Gino's drinks, but she jumps out Florian's drink, and Florian like gets into her face, but he kind of leans down and over her. How dare you? Like, you're shitty. Then Stacey sees how Florian is approaching Jasmine, and she throws a drink at him, and she's like, get out of her face. This whole thing just ignites. It seemed like Gino was totally fine with that happening. Like, he didn't really care. He wanted her to look crazy. And she did. She just looked immediately crazy. Yeah. I don't know how much. I don't think Gino could have orchestrated that, though. Like, that just was.
No.
She flew off the handle.
Yeah, I think she walked in mad. All the boys were clearly drunk. They were literally hammered. The girls were not drunk, but I think Jasmine knew that Gino was drunk, and I think maybe that's why she was just instantly was upset.
Maybe it was just that he was having a good time. I just realized we never went over their homework was that Gino's job was to seduce Jasmine.
Yep, and that was terrible.
They had it was sad. She even explained, she's like, I get in my hottest bikini, and she looked like a cartoon character, and they get into the hot tub, and they're going to have a drink, and she's kind of walking through, and she's like, am I supposed to be seducing you? You're supposed to seduce me. And he's like, okay, yeah, we're doing this sexy. And it's very like
robot, yes.
Going through the motions and announcing that he's going through the emotions. And then he gives her a little massage, and she turns around and she's so excited that she's getting the attention. And turns around to give, and he's like, no, don't rub me back. And she was like,
he literally flinched when she went to touch him.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, what are we doing this? And he's like, well, I want to be clear, this isn't going to lead to sex. We're not going to do it. And they had a great evening the night before because they had gotten drunk at the bar, the big fight with Natalie. Gino pulled her off, and she was like, oh, thank you, baby. And they shared a really nice kiss at the bar. He was kind of into the fact that she was screaming at someone other than him. And he's like, I don't mind it. I like that part of her. As long as it's not directed at me. And she's like, and you pulled me away, like you protected me in that moment, and you stood up for me, and I loved it. Thank you, baby. And they have this really nice kiss. And then they go back to the hotel room and they're like, we don't know how it happened, but we woke up in the same bed. They didn't have sex together, but then they show she was stretching out. She offers him a back massage and they were having fun together. And it seemed like things were going really well. And then they do the sex therapy. It goes great, gross, but great for them. And then he just fumbles the ball so hard on the homework of trying to seduce her. And he does it on purpose. It was so clear that he was being a dick on purpose. And then she's like, I'm going to leave. I can't stand this. I'm leaving. I'm going to ask his family to give me money for a one-way ticket to Panama, which I think his family would gladly pay. So they don't like her. Miss James comes in, tells her to stay. So she stays. They go do the hat thing. And then he gets wasted with the boys. And she comes in and okay, so now that I've put it all together in a timeline, I've explained it to myself. So that's probably why she didn't want him in a good mood, hanging out like nothing happened.
Right.
I feel like they're going to stay together and just continue to be awful forever.
I don't know. It's almost like he catches himself, right? Like when you were describing how fun they were at the bar, they enjoy each other's company. They were even having fun in the hotel room. I mean, the man had her toes in his mouth, and then 2 seconds later he's flinching when she reaches out for him. He catches himself having fun, or he catches himself being in a moment with his wife, and on purpose he's not going to do it. And I don't understand that. I don't know what's going on, but it's on purpose. He's doing it purposefully, and it doesn't make sense. And I think the porn is definitely having to do with it and is a problem. And I think there had to have been some incident that precipitated it. No.
I'm so curious about the weird stuff he's into. Mm-hmm. But then again, I'm worried that I'm going to find out and be just really extra disgusting. So I don't want to know, but I want to know. So it just looks like, I feel like these therapists aren't delving in as deeply as I need them to. I feel like everything is so surface and it's not as engaged as I need it to be. So I'm hoping we can get more into this. All right, so who do you think is going to make it this week?
This week, I feel like it's just Stacey and Florian only.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, only. I don't even think Brandon and Julia are in it anymore because he is.
I think Rob and Julia could make it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Brandon is so self-centered. I just can't.
God. Julia, when she had that conversation with Rob that upset Brandon so much, Rob is in the separate interview just on his own. He was like, she is such a light. She's just so incredible. And I was like,
uh-oh. Yeah.
Like he just had such glowing things. It was like me talking about Julia. Yeah. I think they would get along really well. He would be very secure in her. She needs somebody that will be very secure in letting her go be herself and dance and have fun and not see it as, although he calls her out in the behind the sheets, he's like, yeah, it's inappropriate. It's embarrassing if your woman's doing that. And you're like, well, no, not really, Rob. But anyway. Yeah, I don't think they're going to make it. And I know that they're going to have a group therapy with Brandon's parents and her. And I'm ready to watch that. Yeah. I think only Stacey and Florian have my vote.
Yeah. Which is not what I thought in the beginning, even slightly.
No.
At all.
So many twists and turns.
I know. We didn't talk about toe cheese. We didn't talk about magic sperm.
Oh. We did not. Well, I don't want to talk about it too much because I think you and I should start with
I know. I was trying to come up with what I would do for the magic sperm. I wouldn't call it magic sperm.
Everyone come up with your best business name for sperm facials and we'll vote.
I think it would be like Delightful Spunk something.
The spunky facial.
Spunky facial, yeah. See, that's perfect. But I would have to make the man eat only fruit, right? Pineapple and berries and those kinds of things. Melon.
Well, you have to, that's an upgrade.
Right.
Do you want us like a diet control?
Right, diet control.
The antioxidant upgrade.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you guys have done that at home, tell us all about it. Does it work? I want to know. How do I stay looking young? Gross. All right. Well, I think that's it.
That's a lot, everybody. Wow.
It's a lot.
We will be back next week.
With
one episode.
With just one. It'll be a nice quick one. You can do it during a workout. This one is while you start your New Year's resolution and you clean out all your pantries.
Sure.
You listen to this.
Oh, That's true. That's so
and
true.
then week after that is when you do your first batch at the gym. You listen to next week's.
Good one.
Nice.
All right, everybody.
Well, I miss you.
Miss you.
Hope everyone has a good start of their new year.
Yes. Happy New Year. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See ya.